Hi.
Hello.
I just got back from Italy, so I'm trying to catch my breath. So if I fall asleep, you'll know what's happening up here. So I'm just going to read what I wrote real quick, and hopefully it makes sense. I want to begin by acknowledging that this town hall was scheduled before I was inaugurated. So it was planned, and I blindsided all of a sudden. I'm like, uh-oh. And I had planned Italy a year in advance, which is where I just came back from a couple of days ago. I didn't plan on running for mayor, FYI, at all until it happened. So I had a limited time to even know this meeting was planned. So it's a surprise to me. So I'm glad that we have Jacob Martin and some others that are gonna take over. And we're gonna have more meetings. This is just a preliminary meeting from what I understand. I met with Brian Grimes, city manager, yesterday. And I wanted to be sure, since I was involved somewhat on Ranch House Road and Crown, and just want to be sure with him, talk to him about it. Wanted to avoid some of the issues that we all had with the construction that we had in front of our houses that pretty much changed our lives in not such a great way. And so I talked to Brian about that, and because a lot of us had issues with the driveways, the new driveways, and the humps and everything else that you've heard about. So I was asking him questions about that. And one of the nice things that he mentioned is trying to come back and do one-on-one meetings with some of the residents. And boy, that would have been really cool. That would have been really good in the beginning. So from what he said, they learned a lot from going through Ranch House and Crown. So that's good that they're gonna make some changes on that and some more meetings on that. Right, dear. Right. So I wanna assure you, as an elected mayor, I will get the answers for you, whether it's with Jacob Martin or whether it is with our administration. Because we have a team set up at City Hall to answer questions. And so we want to definitely use them in doing that. So the main thing is we need to get question and answer, so I'm not gonna delay it anymore. And so next we're gonna do the presentation from Jacob Martin, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so you're up.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to step to one side or the other. I think I'll come over here where I can see the slides as we go. Appreciate you guys coming. This seems to be a pretty good turnout. Obviously, the support and communication with the residents is extremely important. And as was mentioned, that's a lesson we learned. We tried to do some of this stuff before, but we're going to be more proactive and intentional about that effort on this one. So we appreciate you being here, and I think after this meeting will be, as part of this meeting, and then afterwards, we'll be finding ways to set up one-on-one interaction with you guys before we get to the final design on the street. You can go ahead and flip over. And I'll just jump in. We've got quite a few slides, but most of them are really just kind of to give you a picture of what a plan set would look like, because some of these documents that you're going to see, something very similar to them, we'll have in our hand when we come out and talk to you guys. And so just kind of give you a broad overview of what it looks like and what it's telling you. But just generally as an overview, this is a project to reconstruct Squaw Creek from where it intersects with Sand Bass all the way up to the Ranch House intersection. Our goal is to do that within very close to the existing footprint of the existing driving surface. I'll show you in a minute. There will be a slide that kind of shows what the street section looks like in very generic terms, but will certainly be within the right-of-way, the existing right-of-way of the street that the city has control of. And it's a 60-foot right-of-way generally, except for one small area on the south end. But But we're gonna try to keep our footprint as much as we possibly can within the confines of that existing driving surface. There are reasons that I'll go into shortly that we can't always do that. I mean, the safety and other design factors dictate that sometimes we have to exceed that a little bit, and I'll show you why, and then we can talk in more detail about where. I don't think it was mentioned, but so we have a map back here, and after I'm done, I believe there's going to be some general Q&A, and we'll walk around with each and every one of you, whoever wants to, and look at your location and what it's going to kind of look like at that point. I think I hit all those, sorry.
You're okay.
It's kind of hard to keep my train of thought going back to, you can go ahead and go to the next one. So, as I said, we've got quite a few slides. I'm not going to go through every one in the interest of time, and again, up on the screen like this, it's kind of hard to make out anything anyway, but we've got some plan and profile drawings showing what the current design on the street would look like, and the design is in a very early stage right now, so please keep that in mind. Things are fluid, and they're certainly not set in stone at this point, so this is a beginning point that we want to look at. Then we've got some cross sections, as I said, are kind of just a general information so you can see what they look like, and we'll go through some other things. Kind of already mentioned the scope. So it does include reconstruction of the pavement. So as the pavement wears over time, and I'll get into that a little bit, some detail of that, you can go back. I mean, stay on that.
Okay.
The roadway, you get potholes and cracks, and at a point, the substructure of the pavement degrades to a certain point. Your only option really is to reconstruct the road. So it's going to be messy. They're going to have to go in and tear out what's there. They're going to have to do some repair or some regeneration of the structure under it, and then come back with the pavement section over it. And there's really no way to avoid the destructive part of that, and it's just going to be messy. And part of our job is to make sure that's done in a manner that's as easy as possible for the residents and for access and that type of thing. So not going to get in a lot of detail on that tonight, but we will talk about that. This is a plan and profile sheet. This is directly out of a plan set. This is what it will look like when it's completed. This is actually based on the design that we currently have. And the top part is a plan view look at one section of the road, just one end of it. And you can see the kind of tan shaded area is the driving surface. That's where the pavement would be. You can see the driveways. You can see some of the lines, kind of squiggly lines through there. That's the grading for the road that we would have to do. And then the bottom section is a vertical profile view of the center line of the street, and it shows the existing center line as it currently is based on surveyed information. And then overlaid on top of that is what we're showing as a proposed street profile, and you can see where you don't see a gap between those two lines. There's no change in the vertical profile of the road planned. Where there is a gap, then that would either be a raising or lowering of the street profile based on some criteria that we'll talk about. So you can flip through the next pretty quickly. This is just each section of the road as you go forward in a scale that we can fit on a single sheet. And by the way, that profile section below, that's the vertical scale of that is distorted so that we can fit it on one sheet. So even though that is a pretty steep section of Squaw Creek right there, you can see it looks extremely steep on that profile. That's just because of that vertical distortion. So we'll talk a little more about that, but you can go on through to keep going, a couple more, one more, keep going, right there. Okay, I mentioned there was a typical cross section that we have. This would actually be very similar to what it looked like in our plan set with a little bit of additional information, but you can see it's showing a 60-foot right of way, or at least I hope you can see that from where you're at. But a 24-foot pavement section with 12-foot lanes, crowned in the middle and sloping off at 2% each direction to the edge of pavement, and then going off on the edge of pavement into the ditch, which is currently there. We won't be changing that as far as the way it lays out. You can go on to the next one. This is a cross-section of the street at just, at one of the locations. So it's just a vertical profile of a section of the street going acrossways. And I don't know if you guys, can you hear me okay, or? Okay. And we're really showing you this because when we come visit with you, this is something that we're gonna have in hand, and it'll be pretty important for you to see. But the bottom section you see there, these are two depictions of the same thing. The bottom one is a similar vertical profile that we looked at a while ago with a distortion on the vertical scale. So you can see that it looks like it's got quite a bit of difference between the existing and the proposed, the proposed being the darker dash line. But if you look at the top, which is at a 1-to-1 scale, there's no distortion there. You can see that that's actually a pretty subtle difference between the two. And so we'll be carrying this with us, and wanted you to kind of get an idea of what you're looking at when we bring those out, so you'll know kind of what we're referring to. You can flip through. These are similar. These are various cross sections going down the road based on where we currently have the profile set. You can see this one. This is actually down in a culvert in a creek. It's not in a driveway, but you can see that there actually is a fairly significant difference in the existing and the proposed, even in that 1-to-1. This is in a location where, in order to fit the culvert and the drainage coming off the road, it's already really tight. And so this is an area we'll talk about where we don't have a lot of choice. So we're gonna have to look at other ways to mitigate that and make it work. But luckily, again, this is not the location where it's gonna affect an access for somebody. But, and this is just another one, I think maybe one more. So, wanted to talk a little bit, I don't wanna spend a ton of time on it and get into a bunch of technical stuff, but wanted to visit just a little bit about design considerations. Whenever we build a new or rebuild a road, we have to comply with certain design criteria, and safety obviously being the chief among those. And when you talk about safety, when it comes to the design of a road, stopping sight distance or sight distance is kind of the big thing that we look at. And in this case, and that applies to horizontal alignment of the road as well as vertical. In this case, the vertical is really the critical one that we're gonna have to deal with because there are so many ups and downs on Squaw Creek. And so when you look at the vertical alignment and the sight distance, you deal with something that's called a K value, a K factor. And the only reason I go into that is that's a calculated number that has everything to do with how far you can see. If you can imagine, if you're going up an incline on a road, and the steeper you get, the more restricted your view is of what's down the road. And so that's what that's an indicator of, and that's what we have to go by. And so the K value is critical in the design of a street. And so Squaw Creek right now, and in pretty much every street you deal with, is going to be in this situation, especially older ones that were in areas like around here where originally these things were built as country roads. There weren't designs in place at the time. That K value really wasn't considered at the time. And so there's areas where it just doesn't meet the safety requirement. And so we have to adjust the profile of that road to meet that. And so again, not intending to go into a lot of detail with you right now on that, but when we come out and talk to you, may or may not be a factor that we need to discuss as far as what we're doing there. We look at side slopes, so we talked about where the ditch comes off the edge of pavement. Generally a 3-to-1 slope, a 3 horizontal and one unit drop is considered stable and maintainable. We set our upper limit at 3-to-1 for what we try to maintain in our design. It's not always possible. In this case, luckily, it's pretty much areas where that would be a concern for our design is really down in the culverts and the creeks. And so there's some ways we can mitigate that pretty easily, but that's something we have to watch. Lane width, as I mentioned, 12-foot lanes, that's generally considered the safe lane width for most roads. You see some streets that are less than that, certainly Squaw Creek is in numerous places, but you wouldn't see a design criteria for less than a 12-foot lane in anybody's standards, or at least it'd be very rare. And then driveway drainage, which obviously I'm sure is a big concern for all of you. Again, we're trying to stay away from the driveways. We're trying to ensure that our encroachment is either non-existent or minimal at the driveways. I think on quite a few of them, we're probably encroaching a foot or two as far as the way we currently have it laid out. Some of that has to do with the fact that Squaw Creek is not consistent. The pavement width varies, and so in order to get a consistent pavement width, we've got to go out a little bit in some places, possibly in a few places, but there's some variation there that we have to accommodate. So, but it's minimal. In some places where we have the vertical control issues that we have to deal with, those may be places that we have to look at and talk to you guys about additional encroachment, but we're minimizing that. We have a handful right now that we're looking at that might be in that situation, and so again, I don't have specific details for these slides, but that's something that we'll be looking at. And so on the ones that we do, we try to maintain criteria for that as well. And so typically, when you're talking about a change of grade for a short wheelbase vehicle, a 14% change in grade is typically where you would see bottoming out. So we set our maximum criteria for any grade break on a driveway at 14%. That's the difference between what your approach and what's on the other side of it, whether it be a vertical break or a lower one. I don't think we're close to that in any of the ones that we're looking at currently, and we're trying to avoid that altogether, as I said. But just so you know, that's kind of our starting point to make it to where it's passable without any issues as far as the cars bottoming out. Excuse me. And as far as the driveways themselves, we have a minimum criteria, minimum width driveway that the city has standards for. So our approach is to, if you're currently shorter than that, we would match the standard width. If you're wider than that, then we would match whatever is currently there. Again, we're not dealing with the ditch or the culverts in the driveways at all. I think we've managed our approach and our goal was to not have to deal with that, so we're not deepening the ditches. And I think from what we're seeing so far, and again, this is early stages, but we're not seeing that we're gonna have to do that. There will certainly be some work within the right-of-way just because of that's dictated by the layout of the road, but we've minimized it and our plan is to stay out of that to the extent that we possibly can. Just real quickly on pavement design itself, I mentioned that, as these projects are driven by the condition of the road, there's different ways to deal with road maintenance. You can have overlays where you just go in and put another layer of hot mix on top of the road. But when you get to the point where the substructure of the road is deteriorating, and that usually has to do with wear on the surface and water encroaching, and it tends to degrade what's underneath it. When that happens and you start seeing a lot of potholes and cracks, then you really only have the option of rebuilding the road. And so that's the situation we're in. What we would typically do is come in and pulverize or mill and mix the surface of the road into some level down, and then pull that aside and chemically treat the subgrade of the road so the expansive soils that are there don't further complicate things and ruin the road that we're about to build. And so stabilizing the subgrade, rebuilding back up, and then putting a layer of pavement on top of that. And we're looking at various options for pavement right now. Our base possibility right now is going back with asphalt, with a stronger layer of asphalt. We're also looking at concrete. Pricing right now is such that we may have either option to look at. They're comparable at the moment, so there's the possibility we can come back with one or the other types of pavement. And so, but that's what we would look at in repairing the pavement itself. I think the only other, you can move on to the next one. Just a real quick note about schedule. Again, we're early stages right now. We do have a design goal to have the design done by September of this year. And that's going to require the design and drafting and the calculations that we have to do to be completed, as well as the resident coordination with you guys and the city review. And once that's done, we would need to get the funding for the construction in place and find out what mechanism is gonna be used for that and determine the time frame for that. But expecting the funding and the bidding process and the award to take place and be completed by February of 26. If that schedule holds, then we would expect a construction completion somewhere in the neighborhood of February of 27, generally about a 12-month process. I believe that's it. I know I saw some hands go up. I think our next plan is to have some Q&A here, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and give the public feedback part, and then we'll turn it over to you for Q&A.
Just making sure this one works too. Todd, I know I'm throwing you a curveball here. Can you pull up our website on the screens, please? First of all, for those who do not know me, my name is Rose Hoffman. I'm the Communications Director for the city. If there is anyone in this room who lives on Squaw Creek proper and has not signed our sign-in sheet over here by the table, we would very much appreciate you doing so. That gives us the fastest, most effective way to contact you when we have updates on your property. On that note, I want to speak very quickly on how we are going to communicate with you and how we would like you to communicate with us and how you can do so. Todd, if you'll scroll down just a tiny bit. This page right here on our website has the central hub for information for everything about this project. Will you click on it, please, Todd? Tomorrow, we will post this PowerPoint, and we will also post the video from tonight's meeting. This is also where you can go for whatever the latest information is and whatever the latest updates are. This is where we're going to refer you guys to look in between the pushing out of regular updates, but as soon as we have something, I'm going to push it out on this page immediately. So that's something that we hope everybody checks regularly, and you're also welcome to reach out to anyone on staff if you would like an update in between. On that note, there is a sheet by the door, and at the bottom of this agenda is the email address that you can email if you have questions or concerns or feedback, and there's also a QR code that takes you directly to this webpage. Just a real quick note on we're going to talk about one-on-one meetings. This is not your only opportunity to ask questions. We are going to give you multiple opportunities to ask questions. One of the reasons why I'm trying to gather everyone's contact information is because we are going to schedule one-on-ones with every single property owner who lives along Squaw Creek. You will have opportunity to ask every question you want to ask. You will have opportunity to connect with whatever staff members you feel like you need to connect with, and we will touch base with you on all of it before we start this project. Obviously, that's going to take a little time and a little legwork to schedule, so you guys can help me a whole lot if y'all make sure I know how to get a hold of you. On that note, we're going to post this video tomorrow. I know that there are a lot of folks that couldn't make it tonight, so if you're watching this on the video, please email info@willowpark.org with your up-to-date contact information. That makes it easier for us to get a hold of you. Now, we're going to open the floor to general questions and answers, and I think Mayor Palmer is going to lead us off. I just want to remind everyone that we're hoping to keep this session for general questions, and then if you have specific questions, you can either ask them over here when we're looking at the properties, or you can do it in your one-on-one, or you can do it by email. But we're trying, in the interest of protecting y'all's time and valuing y'all's and your neighbors' time, if you have a very specific question about this, please wait until you have a chance to talk to folks one-on-one.
Thanks, Rose. So a couple of things because we all experienced this together before, and listening and going to all the council meetings, I want to mention a couple of topics that were raised more than anything else, and I learned about, which is turning radius. That we got to be sure that you have turning radius, and that was one of the things that you mentioned. It's going to be different. We're not going to have that challenge going forward because one of the neighbors, we would get out and together, we would measure the radius of an entry into the properties because we had delivery trucks falling in. The back of the trucks would fall in. And so I had friends that come over for Domino's, and guess what? They'd go, I can't get into your place because of the turning radius. So they'd have to come out and come in to turn in. So I want to mention those are some of the things that I know Derek's heard. He's been in my house. So some of the things that came up, and the ditches were also a big issue. My dog fell in a ditch. I'm like, oh my gosh, there goes my dog. And she's like, what is happening here? So those ditches are really deep, and I mention that because I have a small tank, and sometimes it's totally empty. It's been twice, it's been empty. So the tank's been empty, but we have big ditches to bring the rain in. So come on in, Colorado River, let's bring it on in, because we've got that. So the grading is important for the speed. That's another issue that kept coming up at the council meetings. We don't wanna do humps again, right?
Right.
The grading is important, and not do them over and over and over, and put a little bit more cement here and there. So I wanna let everybody have time to ask questions, but those are the things that I heard the most, going to those meetings. So, Rose, you wanna take it over?
Sure, and then if y'all wanna turn that one on, I think it's still on, that way y'all can
It's
ask
on.
questions.
Okay, we will now open it up for questions to the audience. I will try to make my way to everyone as quickly as I can, but please be patient. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a small question. Is this company the one who did Old Ford Road?
The contractor, it'll be someone different.
Oh,
Yeah, that hasn't been determined yet, but it will be someone other than.
yeah, they did a fairly nice job there. Right, you got something?
Second question, you haven't talked about the water system. Can you tell us how that's going to coincide with the replacement of the road?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to mention that. So we are gonna be replacing the water lines on Crown, on Squaw Creek, I'm sorry. Because they're in pretty bad shape, and we don't want to have to come in and tear out the road to fix them, in the future, obviously. And so, generally what would happen, is they would come in and do the water line first, to avoid, the paving process and all that, and get that underground and then come back over it with the paving. We haven't really, I mean, there's a lot to be thought through as far as how that timing would actually work, that we haven't gotten to yet, but generally speaking, it usually would happen first, and then they would come back and pave over.
What about utilities such as internet and that which I know some of us have?
Yeah, I mean, we do locates, when we do the original design process, and we show everything that they locate on the plans. In fact, in this case, we had a locator come out. We actually had a company come out and do locates, or we're in the process. And so, we will show everything we possibly can. Once that's done, and the plans go out for bid and we get a contractor, then the contractor has the onus of making sure that they don't disturb those utilities. Doesn't always happen. You know, even if we get a good contractor that's conscientious, and there's a lot of them out there, and most of them are, then they'll do the very best they can to avoid those things. But accidents happen. And so we will go through a pretty rigid process of trying to make sure we get a good contractor. We will show everything that we possibly can find on the plan so they know they're there, and then we'll coordinate with the utilities themselves. So we always get a hold of AT&T and whoever it is ahead of time, and make sure that they're aware it's going on. In fact, we would generally set up a meeting, a utility coordination meeting ahead of construction.
And when will you know whether it will be asphalt or concrete? Because a lot of the asphalt repairs that have been done have not been done appropriately, nor are they thick enough.
So our plan, and again, this probably requires a little more discussion. This hasn't gone to council yet, for instance. But within the design team, the staff and engineers, our plan would be to bid two alternatives. So we would bid asphalt and concrete. If the concrete came in less or comparable, we would use the concrete.
Okay, I think we have a question over here.
Quick question for you. AT&T's been wanting to put fiber down Squaw Creek for several years now. Who reaches out to them and say, hey, now might be a good time to start, doing your dark fiber down there, get it down point to point? Is that the city? Is it y'all? Or I'm just kind of curious on who would let them know.
Yeah, I mean, well, so we will make that contact. I suspect the city will as well. Gretchen will probably be in touch with them as well. They have direct contact with them all the time, so they'll be having communication, but we will make direct contact as well.
Jacob, the bridges, there was no mention about the bridges, the two bridges. The one closest to Range House Road, I was just behind a tractor trailer today, and it bottomed out right there. So the first thing I thought was, if there was a fire there, the ladder truck would not be able to. It would have to go down, Sam Bass, around and then over.
Right.
So is there any talk about rebuilding those bridges and elevating them some? Because there's no driveways there that would be affected.
Yeah, so those are culverts, I believe, it's what we consider culverts. And that's what I was talking about in two things, particularly the K value, the vertical alignment thing I was talking about. That's part of that problem, that's part of that concern. And so we're maintaining the minimum values that we can to not just, to not affect homeowners, but we're staying above that minimum so that the roads are passable. And we're also at those locations, the roads are narrower currently there, I believe, probably pretty much on every one of them. But we're actually, we're staying within the 24-foot width all the way, but we'll actually be widening those areas to 24 feet. So that's a major concern, making sure that vehicles can pass. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, who else? All right, TJ, I'm coming your way.
You had mentioned chemically treating the roads. What type of chemical are you talking about, and is there any danger of that leaching out? And then second question, you have February of 27 as substantial completion. Is that for the total project or just the Squaw Creek portion of it?
It's the total project. I would caution you and plead with you to accept that caution that we're way early to be projecting that at this point, but it's probably in that time frame. As far as the treatment, it's actually, it would either be lime or cement or a combination of both. It's pretty commonly used, and it wouldn't leach out.
Hello, I live on a ranch house and was part of the ranch house Crown Road construction and questions and problems that arose. And one thing that we had Gretchen come out and look at with us during the ditch digging, we were terribly concerned about the steepness of the ditch. And we could see that practically we weren't going to be able to mow our lawns anymore because in fact lawnmowers would tip over. And we were told and assured that those ditches were a 3-to-1 ratio, which I noticed you say is the ratio for the ditches that will be installed. And I'm wondering, why do they have to be so steep that a lawnmower will actually tip over?
Okay, so the 3-to-1 is kind of a rule of thumb maximum. In this case, we're not intending to the ditches are pretty flat on Squaw Creek. We're not planning to change the ditches. So on Crown and Ranch House, there were some things going on that drove some of that. We were widening the road. And so, the ditches that were there, because the road was going into them some more, had to steepen in order to make the road. We're not doing that in this case, at least not, like I said, it's minimal where it is happening. So, our intent is to stay out of the ditches as much as possible.
Stay out of the ditches.
Anyone else? Raise those hands high.
Hi, I just want to put another voice out there advocating for high-speed internet. That's it. I want council to know that we want it really, really bad, so please, yes.
Yes, sir. During this, will there be any road closure of the sections of the road?
There almost certainly will be. There will be. We have not got into once we get the alignment of the road set, then we'll go into the traffic control plan and put that together. But generally what we try to do is keep one lane of traffic open. Access to the houses will always have to stay open. That's a requirement, obviously, that we'll put on the contractor, but generally there will have to be one lane of traffic that's closed in order to get the road built. And so, and typically that would occur, as I said, they would do one lane and finish it, put it back in service, and then go over and do the other one, or something to that effect.
Thanks, sir.
Does anyone else have any general questions? All right, let's go.
I live on Squaw Creek. Is curbing gonna be involved in this at all?
We're not planning on putting any curb.
Okay. Then the other thing that I wanna make a comment about, it's all been addressed, is about concrete versus asphalt. Squaw Creek becomes a major thoroughfare when Ranch House Road is closed down for any reason. You get a tremendous amount of traffic in it. Asphalt doesn't hold up. So emphasis needs to be placed, even if asphalt is cheaper, then we may wanna go with concrete, cause it, like I said, is a major thoroughfare once Ranch House is closed.
Hi there. I live just off of Squaw Creek, and I work as a computer programmer for Lockheed Martin, and I have a hell of a time working from home because of the internet. So I wanna point out that I'm really interested in getting some decent internet so I can work from home a little more.
Let me just say that we have absolutely nothing to do with it. But if we're talking to somebody, we'll make sure and make your plug.
Sure. The other thing that I was curious about is there an option to start laying any lines for sewer as a part of this activity? I don't know if that's on the plan or not, but I know I'd be interested.
It is not part of the plan that we're underway with right now. There's a lot more to putting sewer in than just laying the lines. There's a lot more involved, and the cost is significant. And so it's something that's being looked at. I know, and I really don't have any other information than that, but it's not part of this project.
Does anyone else have a question before we move over to the map? Well, then Mayor Palmer, with your permission, I say we go to that portion.
So the way we'll do this, there's 3 of us here that are involved with the design, and we put this together. We'll just spread out along the table. It would be nice if we could try to kind of be orderly about it and just maybe form a line, and we'll try to get to everybody as quickly as we can. But we're gonna be taking notes, and so, we just wanna make sure we have the time to get down the information that you want us to, so we can follow up appropriately.
Let me mention, sorry, I'm gonna say something else.
Because I'm afraid some people will leave, so here you go. Okay, I want to mention to you, City Hall is your house. Every desk, every chair, you paid for. So I want you to come to your house. Please come to City Hall. And don't make me be the only one asking all these questions, because I'm asking constantly questions, but fortunately they have the answers. So please engage and come to the city council meetings. We have about 30 chairs in there. So I called our fire marshal and said, how many chairs can we have in there? Because I don't want to get in trouble with fire marshal. And he said that, you're probably good for 20 more chairs in that room. And you want to be sure that everybody's in front, not sitting behind, right, Sean? And Sean's safety wise, we don't want them behind. So he said, and Tony is ordering 20 more chairs. So please come and engage with everyone at city council and the manager and with me. That's what I ask you to do before you head to the maps. Thanks.
Derek, you want to take it from here?
Sure, yeah, if you guys will just meet us over here, we'll get started. You guys know which direction this is. We got the south.